Hey Dan, can you hear me?
Liam, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Does it sound too echoey in here?
Better.
It's better.
Um, I didn't notice anything until you mentioned it, and even now, I don't think there's an echo.
Okay, perfect. I'm just gonna play some chill music for everyone.
Yeah, put some Ibiza Cafe chill hop or something.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar co-hosted between Elevated Signals and Isolocity. We're just going to get started in a couple minutes here, and we'll give a few more minutes for people who are going to be coming in late. Looking forward to getting started soon. All right, everyone, let's get started here. And welcome to our joint webinar co-hosted by Elevated Signals and Isolocity. We're really excited that everyone was able to join today. And today we're going to be talking about how cannabis producers can scale up and tackle some of the biggest challenges that accompany that growth, mainly ways to reduce costs, human error, and those inefficient processes that might be plaguing your cannabis operations. So I'm Liam. I'm the sales director at Elevated Signals, and I'm joined today by Chris Budd.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name is Chris Budd. I'm also the director of sales over here at Isolocity, and very much looking forward to today's conversation.
Fantastic. So Elevated Signals and Isolocity, we're excited to announce our partnership and that we're actively developing the integration between our two platforms. And what we wanted to start off today was just give a little bit of context into each of our platforms and sort of where our key competencies are in the facility. So to start off, Elevated Signals is a cannabis manufacturing platform for Canadian licensed producers. And our platform focuses on three main pillars. The first is inventory tracking, so tracking the additions, destructions, and movements of plants and production batches as they go throughout your facility, as well as change in their different manufacturing stages. The second pillar is our quality record keeping. So Elevated Signals digitizes all of the quality records that producers need to be Health Canada compliant. And in this presentation, when we talk about the quality records, those includes GPP forms like sanitization, destruction, pest control applications, plant scouting, all of that kind of information. And where we see a lot of success is through the digital record keeping, because our platform allows inventory and quality assurance teams to quickly compile batch reports for Health Canada audits or to use for their internal quality assurance, quality control processes. And how the platform does this is by automating a lot of the daily record keeping and ultimately aggregating this information into a full-scale production batch report. Our third pillar is environmental monitoring and data collection. So we work with third-party sensor companies to deploy environmental sensors that monitor temperature, humidity, CO2, and light detection. But ultimately, the goal of the platform is to provide a shop floor data aggregation tool for producers. And what that allows producers to do is to capture key production information as it pertains to inventory, quality control information, and environmental data, so producers can build their data lake at the facility. And all of this information lets producers drive key insights with Elevated Signals or export this information to ultimately understand what's happening at their facility and make those key data-driven decisions about the production batches that they're going to be releasing in the future and what they've released in the past.
Thank you, Liam. And for those of you who do not know us, we're Isolocity. We are a compliance management software. The name Isolocity focuses the problem that we're trying to solve, which is underlying QMS management. Our goal at Isolocity is to automate and drive compliance in an efficient manner. Our system focuses a lot on document and SOP management that drives learning management through to all employees within the facility. We also specialize in CAPA, batch validation, QA planning when it comes to change control and risk management. We also have a full deviation OOS module along with customer complaints as well that will allow you to build out all of your quality management compliance record keeping requirements. The integration between Elevated Signals and Isolocity is going to focus on sharing common data sets and initiating quality triggers that come with CAPA escalation and any sort of deviations. Furthermore, the goal is to also share data sets such as batch management and part management, so duplicate entry is not required between the two systems. A little introduction about where we're going to go today. As we all work in this exciting and growing industry we call cannabis, it is a growing industry that is constantly changing with regulations, and lots of companies have their eyes on international expansion. The focus of today's webinar is going to ensure that we're helping guide our clients to be set up for a sustainable future within this industry. The goal here is to help companies understand how to error-proof against human error and how to mitigate inefficient processes while reducing the risk on site. We're going to stress the need to create processes that are efficient and effective, and that can also be validated as well to ensure that they're being carried out correctly. We're also going to focus on as well the problems with having information silos. When you have common data sets that need to be shared, the emphasis should not be duplicate entry. The emphasis should be on data syncing. One of the challenges we're going to roll through today has to do with building out your processes and growing your team. When you're building out your processes, this requires a lot of investment, and there's a lot of resources involved when it comes to the time and the expertise you need to adapt to certain regulations and to the certifications into everyday practices. This can be expensive when you consider ongoing human resources and the cost of training and maintenance required to keep operators and operations running smoothly. Employee turnover and onboarding can be a very inefficient and not very effective process, especially when you're relying on a more traditional toolkit. You must allow for the ability to adapt with changing regulations, ensure that all your operators are being trained correctly in an efficient manner. These requirements can change quickly. Therefore, depending on the size of your operation, it may be necessary to adapt different standards and operating procedures for each facility, or even depending on the product line as well and the nature of the production. Since regulations may vary with region, product and technology in place, and more, it's important to have these considered when thinking about international expansion as well. So, one of the solutions we're going to suggest during this webinar to solve the problem we just described is to utilize recognized standards when training out your employees. Standards such as GMP and ISO that are utilized in other industries such as food, pharmaceutical, and cosmetics. This will bring best practices to a GMP facility. Furthermore, ensure that you have a CAPA management system and risk mitigation protocols that can be easily escalated and initiated by all employees in place. This will allow for scalability and the ability to adapt and escalate information when required. Employee turnover and onboarding can be quite efficient, so you need to have a toolkit that's going to allow for a comfortable working and learning condition. Furthermore, changes in regulations can also put a strain on resources, especially if you're using a traditional toolkit. So you want to have a standardized approach to training and have an employee training portal that is easy to access and it's easy to report out on when it comes to reviewing the training matrix and the status of various employees' training activities. Training and error reporting can be less taxing and risky with the use of a digitalized automated system. This will enable your business to shift resources to create immediate impact with the action items that are required to be taken. So in summary, one problem that we're going to outline and solve today for you is training management along with CAPA escalation and employee involvement. Liam, over to you.
Thanks, Chris. So the second challenge that we're going to walk through, one very familiar to a lot of people in the cannabis industry, is those inefficiencies caused by human error and really paper-based systems. So to be compliant with Health Canada guidelines, producers need to track the inventory of their plants and production batches throughout their facility, as well as the accompanying quality control documentation that really outline how the facility's QA program is managed and executed against those specific batches. So all of those quality records and inventory events, those all need to be compiled into a master batch record that gives the producer and importantly, the third-party inspector, really the full manufacturing history of that batch. So all of this batch reporting, including producers' monthly CTS and CRA reporting, really means that compliance is a huge operational cost for today's producer. Now, what a lot of teams are realizing or have already found out is that managing this paper-based QA system is really costly and very labor intensive. And it becomes even more difficult as the number of batches scale up, reporting demands increase, or as the number of products and SKUs are developed and go to market, really your facility operations becomes more complex. And when the company is growing and the production QA staff are hiring more colleagues, Multiple staff members interacting with the batch report in your inventory system can lead to a lot of QA errors, and having this information in a manual system really lowers the visibility and prevents any of those inventory errors from being exposed until a third-party inspector comes in, or the end of the month inventory counts come through. Producers have told us, they're spending anywhere from 18 to 20 hours per staff member per week just filing this paper and verifying these records. And compiling all of that information for batch release can take up to a week and a half, which ultimately delays any of that product release and really revenue coming in the door. So the solution that we see producers adopting is by implementing a manufacturing execution system and really automating their QA and inventory process. They're able to reduce those high costs. And ultimately, they're able to become more competitive because they're decreasing their operational and compliance costs per batch. This is because a manufacturing execution software really allows producers to do more with less. That's because all of the quality control records are digitized and producers are able to be paperless on the production floor. This is done through an MES automatically filing any of the quality control records into a master batch record, saving time in terms of document compiling and verification. And really it gives organizations it's an automatic structure and process to their record keeping. The ability to download inventory reports at any point for that production batch allows teams to spend significantly less time on their CTS and CRA reporting, but ultimately it gives them the ability to identify any potential errors earlier in the supply chain when they're less costly to fix, as opposed to when those inventory errors are exposed, further down at product release, for example. Ultimately, we're giving QAs a tool to be better and really excel at their jobs so they can focus on high value tasks like, optimizing their QA processors, streamlining any of that quality document building, and really shortening their product release times and kind of focusing on new product innovation. The third challenge that we see, and one that sort of led to the partnership between Elevated Signals and Isolocity, is the information silos. And how that pertains to having information trapped in two different disconnected software systems, or between two separate, a software system and a paper-based system. The issue with software silos is that when you have these multiple disconnected systems, producers are going to be spending a lot of time and money to combine all of this production data into a master batch record. And when you have the information trapped either on pen and paper or in another system, it also prevents producers from analyzing any costing information and ultimately understanding the current true quality state that that batch is in. Not only that, it also increases, the complexity of audit reporting when your GMP or Health Canada auditors come to your site. The reason it increases this reporting is because producers need to be able to show all of this document quality control. And not only does the documentation apply to the seeds in the plants and production batches that producers are growing, but it's also any of the locations that you're cultivating your cannabis in and the equipment that you use to do it. And of course, with any machinery, there might be out of spec deviations and the subsequent corrective action plans that producers need to take. And all of that documentation needs to be compiled, not only for internal use, but showing that information to the inspectors. So having that information in multiple systems really increases the amount of work that producers need to spend preparing for the audit, the time going through the audit, and then any of the subsequent follow-up and process improvements following the audit recommendations. So the solution that we're excited to walk through today and just give producers some insight to is integrating the tech stack for your facility. So really choosing best-in-class software to cover those key manufacturing components that you have at your facility, mainly your inventory tracking, quality records, as well as building out your quality program. And integrating those key processes at your facility will reduce the silos of information between those manufacturing process, because producers are able to aggregate and contextualize any of this previously siloed information into one consolidated batch record for that specific cannabis batch. So any of the processing and equipment information, that can all be communicated through an API. And that really is going to reduce the duplication of work, your manual data input, and then ultimately saving producers time and lowering those operational costs. As well, a real benefit of integrating, sort of the full scope of your quality program is that linking the SOPs and the learning management and training systems done in Isolocity to those specific forms that employees are using in the shop floor and elevated signals, that increases the scope of knowledge across all levels of your organization. And that means that when you hire any new staff, those staff have the same access to the information as the most experienced operators on the team. And really that lets them ramp up to their desired productivity much faster, hopefully make more errors and really excel at their job, earlier in their tenure at the company. So what we're going to do now, let's take it for a whirl. I'll pass the mic back to Chris and we can see what it looks like in practice.
Thanks, Liam. Great explanation, and we're looking forward to the fun part of this conversation. Where we're going to take this next, everyone, is I'm going to bring you into Isolocity and solve that first problem I outlined at the beginning of this presentation with quickly pushing out training requirements to your staff, along with how do you onboard a new employee quickly and efficiently with a document management and learning management system like Isolocity. From there, Liam will be taking it over and demonstrating the capabilities of elevated signals and its ability to create batch production records in order to be compliant and audit ready. And at that point, we'll then transition it back to Isolocity. As we receive that package into our system, we do our QA review, a COA analysis, and then finally give any sort of batch release sign-off required by the QAP or any other qualified person within the organization. So at this point, I'm going to bring this screen down and bring up my software, the Isolocity software, sorry. So what we can see here is we see a document page, and this document page is going to focus on a plant inspection SOP. In a system like this, you're going to want to have the ability to link various data sets that's going to require for quick data push and quick training schedules to be executed out on your applicable employees. And what we have here is we have a document approval process that has gone through an approval process that has followed a particular matrix. Along with that, we also see that this document is related to this training program that can be custom built to meet the requirements of that particular SOP and any sort of associated employee groups. Now, this is also important because when you're pushing out training of a particular regulation or SOP, you don't want it to go to the whole company, just to the people who need to be informed on it. Outside of that too, we also see any sort of other types of information that relate to this SOP, such as the change control, and this change control is still active. We have the document that is uploaded here for reference and viewing when it comes to training purposes, and documents can be housed with images and lots of other things in here as well too. And then finally, any other child documents. Now, a child document would be part of this document family, and if this document is going through review and a revision, this type of process is going to call out where the other documents also need to be reviewed for adequacy and relevancy. At this point here, our users will be given the opportunity to push out a training button. So when I press this gray button, what will happen? It's going to initiate training for all the applicable users. And when those users log into their system, they're going to come in and they'll be able to review any sort of resource material and linked data sets. Upon reviewing those linked data sets and resource material, they'll then be able to fill out and complete the form and the skill testing questions to verify and validate they have read the SOP and they understood the SOP and answered the questions correctly. All part of this can also be tracked through our training activity scheduler. We could see based on this look here, we can look at all the training programs that are outstanding, which ones are overdue, and who we're waiting on. You can dedicate it by various statuses of the training program, along with the certain employees within your organization that you want to see who is still outstanding on various training activities. A quick access training matrix as well is very important, giving the ability to have an executive summary on who's been trained on what SOP and who has not, who's completed the training on time and who's completed the training late. From here, in sourcing out and understanding where we're at with our training KPIs, When bringing on new employees in a highly regulated industry, it is very important that the employee gets scheduled for training immediately. So with a system like this, when onboarding new employees, you'll be able to associate them to various groups, and these groups are associated to documents, but also associated to company policies and procedures. And when you have this new employee and you make these associations in a system like Isolocity, when you initiate the training, the system's now going to suggest various training programs for this employee. You can actually have it scheduled out to end at a certain date. You can ask for these training programs to be repeated every 12 months. So this allows you to schedule out refresher training on SOPs and various training corporate programs that need to be verified and read and understood by your employees. So going back to the problem that we were addressing initially in our presentation is the quick escalation of new training requirements, SOP revisions that need to be broadcast out to the appropriate audience in a timely manner. But on top of that too, onboarding a new employee and ensuring that that new employee has been scheduled for the appropriate trainings so they're able to come into the facility and complete the tasks that have been asked of them. At this point, I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to invite Liam to take over here and demonstrate how Elevated Signals goes about creating batch records, and allowing their clients to be audit ready.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. And can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So logging into Elevated Signals, we're a cloud-based web-hosted application. So producers can access your software from wherever or whenever you log in. And just a high-level overview when you log in first to sort of familiarize yourself with the facility. You've got your locations, areas in the software, or areas in your facility where you're going to grow and process your cannabis, the trim room, veg, flower room, as well as some metadata about what's actually happening in that room, the number of batches and the number of plants that are in that room. And then on the left-hand side, a quick navigation bar to move throughout the modules that you need in your facility. You've got your cultivation batches where you can look at all of your plant and production batches in here with the growth stage and the number of plants that they have. The processing module where you can look at any of your weighted production batches, your general work orders, which track the transformation of plants and weight into finished products. We've got our destruction module with double signatures, our quality record headquarters, which we'll get into in a little bit here, including our master record library, as well as our form builder, reporting that producers use for Health Canada's CTS, CRA, and their internal reporting, and then into our facility settings. So already this is sort of where Elevated Signals defines itself as a manufacturing execution software, because we allow producers to track all of that equipment and accessory information in terms of how they're actually manufacturing their cannabis, not just the inventory. So that includes things like your environmental sensors, the equipment that you're using to track and use during any of your harvests or processing, and then all of the applicable products that you would be using as well. So let's first jump into a cultivation batch here. And I've got my batch of es.iso that we're going to be using. So in our batch of ESO here, we have some high-level information about this batch in here, the cultivar, its growth stage, and its current location, as well as some high-level information about where this batch is in its growth stage. What we also have on here is an event log. So what the event log will provide is an immediate snapshot into the manufacturing history of this batch, because as we were saying earlier, it breaks down these siloed data information because it contains all of the inventory movements and then also the work orders and the quality control documentation that pertains to this specific batch. So what operations and inventory teams can do is have an immediate understanding into the true state of where this batch is at in its manufacturing process. So let's walk through filling out some of that quality documentation that we've built in Isolocity into Elevated Signals. So how our producers like Tantalus and Decibel are using the platform is that they fill this information out on a tablet on the shop floor in real time. And by clicking the quick record button here, we provide the digital templates that your team needs for Health Canada compliance and beyond. So things like sanitization, pest control applications, destruction, and so on. So let's do a plant scouting form here. These are all controlled data input forms, so you can choose all of the batches that are at your facility or the locations. So let's just choose, we're going to execute this one against veg room 1. We have any of our pests in here, some of the physical symptoms, if there's an incident level, and all of this information is customizable in our form builder, which we'll go through shortly here. You can upload pictures if you want, or add in start time and end time of filling out this information for labor tracking if your team is interested. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this record, and that's going to take me to the master record library. So this is the central secure location in your software where all of your quality information and forms will live. You've got your plant scouting, your sanitizations, equipment calibrations, and so on. And the best part about a digital system is that it really provides that immediate structure and organization to your record keeping. So unlike a pen and paper, you don't have to worry about this form getting filled out and somehow making its way to the QA office. All that information is automated in Elevated Signals. And you can filter by batches, by the locations, the type of record, or by start time and end time. So if we go into our plant scouting here, we can download a PDF of it. And what it's going to do is just pull up that information that we filled out in our side menu here in a clean, easy to read document that we filled out against our locations. Here's our veg 1 with the pests and pathogens that we found. But the best part is that all of our forms come with a digital signature with the date and timestamp of when this information was recorded. So ensuring that your forms are always ready to go in the eyes of Health Canada, and you don't need to spend time, chasing your colleagues down to get them to sign a form. As well, on the form page here, if anyone makes mistakes, this is a permissions-based feature. You can come in and modify the record. Let's just say instead of foliage curling, we have some wilting. I can make that modification here and save the record. What you'll see on the side here is an edit history. So essentially providing in-app form version control, where you can see any of the modifications to this record. Your team is always looking at the most recent version of the record, and you don't have to worry about scribbling out initial signing and dating the record to make any modifications. You always have a clean and easy to read form. Producers can verify. I obviously can't verify my own record, but I can come in and lock it, ensuring no modifications are made to this record. So what I'm going to do, let me just jump back to my veg location in here. And if I go to my locations in the veg room 1 here, see how we have 4 batches in here? If I go to the records, there's that plant scouting record that we filled out. So automatically associated with the locations that you fill and execute that work against. Now let me just go to our batches. And if I click into our batch of ISO in here and go to the records, there's that plant scouting record that we filled out, automatically associated with the batch. And just for demo magic, if we go to this batch of B00 here and go to records, as well, there's that plant scouting there. So giving producers the ability to save a lot of time and effort in terms of duplicating any of those records across multiple batches. And now if I go to my event log and scroll down to the bottom, there's that plant scouting record that we completed right away. So from an operational, I've increased visibility across my full supply chain, understanding what's happened to this batch at any level. Now, just as a quick comment, if we provide these forms out of the box for producers, if there are forms that we don't have, or you would like to customize any of these forms, that can all be done through our form builder in here. So I can just go to my plant scouting form in here. And this is essentially the form that producers look at on the production room floor. We have the ability to make any modifications by going through and opening up the form builder. And you essentially want to think of this as, a Google Forms on steroids, where you can come in and make any modifications, let's say to the, symptoms observed in here, something that might be unique to your facility. Or if you want, I can go and make a form that, might not be in our system, but that is unique to your facility. Something like, let's say, a plant maintenance and movement record in here. What I can do is open up the form builder and give it the same power as our other forms by choosing a form list to put in here. So in this form view here, I can put in a data select and choose batches and link this data source directly into our database. And by updating it in here on the side menu, I can select the batches that we have in our facility here. So any of the forms that you want, giving them the same power to be automatically associated to the locations and batches in your facility. Where this all comes together is when your team wants to either provide a report to Health Canada for an audit, or to just understand, what's happening at this batch level for your own internal quality control. So you come in and hit download PDF, and what this is going to do is aggregate any of the inventory movements, quality control steps into a single comprehensive document for you to show Health Canada. Obviously, this is just a batch record from one of our demo batches, but you can see the clear step-by-step manufacturing history. And this is what producers show to Health Canada and essentially love going through audits because they're so effortless and painless for them. You have information on the day the batch was created, plant movements, adding plants to the specific batches through work orders and any of the associated inputs and outputs through those work orders. As well, all of the additional quality control documentation is appended in this batch record in here. We have our work orders summaries in here. We have our plant scouting records. And if I scroll down to the bottom, here's our plant scouting record that we just filled out this morning. So all of that information is automatically associated with the batch. And the best part is that this batch report was generated and entirely by the software. No person had to go in and build this batch record. It was all done automatically through the system. And you can download these reports for any kind of batch that you have. So if I go, let's say maybe into my production batch in here, and I go to this batch of B0013, you can download this batch report, and this information can then be shown during an audit or exported into Isolocity to do the final batch review in here. We've been through multiple successful Health Canada audits and take that information not only from the producers who are going through the audits, but the audit inspectors and bringing those key features into the platform to make the auditing experience easy, and ultimately for producers to surface that key information that they need to know about the batch as it moves throughout the life cycle. So with that, I'll pass this information back over to Chris.
Perfect. Thank you, Liam. Always love watching you guys, your stuff go. It's a beautiful software. Okay, so where this happens, where this product life cycle goes next is into Isolocity, where we can see here we have our inspection of the certificate of analysis of this particular batch. This process in Isolocity allows our users to mass upload or have an API lab results come into the system that allows you to then trend and track key characteristics on levels such as THC or pesticides within your particular products. This gives your ability to see a statistical process control chart that is located on our dashboard that outlines all the parameters of KPIs. Along with this sign-off sheet here, we also have the ability to upload these batch records. So we can see here from Elevated Signals, we have a batch record that's been uploaded, reviewed, and has been QA signed off as well. We see that we have a failed event here, and this failed event brings us to raising an out-of-spec sample. Now, when raising an out-of-spec sample within Isolocity, it initiates and it links back to the inspection, thus creating the chain of custody of what's happening with this data package. While going through the out-of-spec sample report, our users are able to work the form that is compliant to both Health Canada and FDA requirements, and going through the investigation and identifying what needs to happen next, our users are then prompted, if they need to raise a corrective action, escalate this up to a corrective action, which we can see here. This is the next escalation point. Coming into this corrective action form in Isolocity now, where it's now linked back to the OOS and that inspection record where we were validating the batch record from Elevated Signals, our users then come into our CAPA form. And our CAPA form, like all of our system, has full audit traceability on who's touched what part of the form, when they contributed information into it, the validated e-signature when it comes to location, IP address, and browser it was made on. Furthermore, any sort of differences in data that has been made. So the old value and the new value of any data sets when it was taking place. Along with all of our forms in the system, we also utilize a action and notification piece. So this allows you to keep the communication alive and well as it surrounds this particular process. You can create a discussion board here and point it at various individuals within the organization, or you can simply generate a complete action item here and assign it to one of our users and essentially give it a due date and a priority level, and that person is then action to complete various parts of this form. They will then receive an email telling them that they have something to do. Now, when going through our corrective action form, our users are driven through our 8D form that comes out of the box, but we also provide customization to all of our quality forms here as well, too, thus providing our users the ability to relabel, hide, and make required various parts of our corrective action form. We have full 5Y and fishbone root cause analysis toolkits that give our users the ability to identify the root cause and conclude the root cause and drive actions through our system. We can see here that when we get to this part of the corrective action form, we then want to call out updating our risk management toolkit. So we can create out of the shelf responsibilities that need to happen as it pertains to this issue that has been escalated through the failed batch record. Bringing us into the PFMEA to be updated, our full risk management toolkit will allow our users to then come in and make adjustments and have that audit traceability of where the adjustment was made and why. Also utilizing a full risk legend that we have within our system to provide our users guidance on how to complete their process failure modes, effect analysis, or preventative control plans. Where this all comes to fruition is we do also have a batch lookup tool similar to ES, but functions a little bit different because we're focused more on the compliance toolkits here. And we can see that looking at this batch number, we get that stoplight effect in Isolocity that tells us everything that's failed, that's open, or as if maybe in progress as well too. Linking the batch number to all these quality events that have happened in the system. So you can see we have a couple of open corrective actions. We have a change control that is linked to that plant inspection SOP that we looked at earlier in our presentation. We also see that the out of spec sample is also currently open as well, and seeing that failed event in the inspection sample. This system also allows you to consolidate all these printouts with full data sets into one big PDF with the entire audit trail that has happened within all the quality events with this particular batch in all these relating forms. So with that being said, I'll bring your eyes back to the presentation. And bear with me, sorry guys. Okay. So want to review the problem we just solved for the group there in that part of the demonstration was taking a look at how do we validate the batch paperwork from ES and how do we escalate up into a quick corrective action and out of spec sample when we have any failed events, then linking it to the update of the risk management toolkit, thus then bringing it to the batch lookup tool where it gives the health check on where all the reports are at, what's in progress, what's failed, and what needs to be worked on prior to release. So where we want to go now is just recap and why us. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a why us. As we have demonstrated here today, both Liam and I have showed this group that a lot can go wrong if you're relying on traditional toolkits. Elevated signals and Isolocity allow our users to seamlessly automate record keeping while ensuring the level of risk is mitigated and they are always audit ready. Both companies have a great track record and are continuing to expand their respective footprints in this exciting industry. Elevated Signals and Isolocity are both homegrown, built systems who own and control their IP, thus allowing us to be agile with development and to continually meet the growing needs of the cannabis industry. And then Liam, I'll let you conclude, and then we'll go to the Q&A.
Perfect. Yeah, no, great summary, Chris. Just wanted to top up that, we're excited and proud to be working with some great producers in the industry spanning the full supply chain and, different industry segments, working with awesome processors like the team over at Joint Venture Craft Cannabis, producers like 314 Pure out in Alberta, all the way up to top publicly traded companies like Rubicon Organics. And for us, we really take a close partnership mentality with our producers. in that it's critical for us to really understand what producers are doing at their facility, not only from an internal manufacturing standpoint, but managing their compliance as well. So we could take this information to build a product and really an ecosystem for these cannabis producers that gives them the tools to be successful today and also successful in the future as the industry is developing. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to chat with Chris and I, and would love to open the floor up to questions. Also, if you don't want to ask a question, that's totally fine. There's a little chat box at the bottom, and please feel free to ask a question there. We've got our marketing team on monitoring the chat box. So if Chris and I miss your questions, then we'll be sure to either follow up or just answer in here. So thanks so much, everyone, and would love to hear your questions.
Hi, everyone. I guess I'll start it off. My name's Daniel Juarez Ruiz. I've worked with a few different clients in the past, and in my previous life, I guess I could say, and I was curious, what are the biggest challenges a client has when going through a GMP audit when using like an electronic system? How does Isolocity support their clients during these events?
That's a great question. Thank you. Well, a lot can go right and a lot can go wrong when going through a GMP audit. The most important thing that as an electronic system that we must provide our clients with is the validation protocols and certificates that we receive and are held accountable to. We provide our clients with a validation protocol that they can fill out themselves, or if they want, they can rely on our own automated toolkit that provides the validation of our software for them. Furthermore, we are audited annually to all the GMP regulations within Health Canada, the FDA, and EU GMP. And we do receive an annual certificate and provide that to our clients if required. In fact, we just finished our annual audit, and we are still waiting for a certificate for this year, but we do provide everything that is required, and we've had many clients go through GMP audits, whether it be with Health Canada, the FDA, or the EU GMP officials, and they have all been successful. Okay, looks like we have a couple of questions from Jose first, and then Ashley. So Jose's asking, what verification system is in place to ensure that only current and approved SOPs synced between platforms? Okay, so I'll talk to you a little bit about how we manage approved SOPs in Isolocity, and from how this partnership is going to work. The SOP management and the learning management system will reside with Isolocity, and we can see here that in our system, this SOP is still technically under revision. It's approved but not effective, and we have a change control that is still active. So when I try to approve this SOP, it's going to tell me to get lost. It's going to say incomplete change control. So this allows our users to build the checks and balances within the system to ensure that all required documentation is approved and completed, and I'll just link into the change control here, prior to that SOP being approved. So this is some of the checks and balances we have built within Isolocity to ensure that everything is completed as per your SOP prior to publishing this approved SOP in your master document list. Liam, do you want to talk a little bit about how you guys?
Perfect. No, it's a great question, Jose, and it actually sort of parlays nicely into Ashley's questions. Ashley's question about, can the form be associated / linked to the SOPs? So using our example, how does a veg form link into the veg SOP and Isolocity that it allows for complete document traceability? So this is part of the integration that we are scoping out. As Chris said, there are the respective checks and balances in Isolocity that prevent the SOP release. And what I can show is, Chris, if you let me share my screen here real quick. In the Elevated Signals platform, right now, if I'm in the form builder right here. So the form manager for any of our authorized templates or unreleased versions in here. What we have at the top is you can see that the number of versions that have been created for this form, the specific versions that have been released. So this is a way to track the version control of the specific forms in here. In terms of linking them into the SOPs themselves, there are a few ways to do that. Producers can put information at the top of the form here that says correspond to the specific SOP number in Isolocity. Or what you can do is set up an SOP category in here. So this would essentially categorize any of the SOPs that you have in the quick records here based on the SOP categories that you have in Isolocity, and allow for quicker document search and to have a little bit more of a streamlined approach to finding any of those forms themselves to use on the shop floor here.
Oh, I got a question coming in just to me personally, but I think it's for you, Liam. How do you guys manage your user levels and permissions within Elevated Signals?
Yeah, great question. So our platform allows for unlimited users for a standard producer, and that's all done through the user permissions in here. So everything that we saw today can be entirely controlled based on the user role. We provide, of course, the default user roles that producers can have, but you can also make your own user roles, and these are the different permissions. So quite detailed levels of granularity that producers can have to control, modify, make any edits to the forms or inventory reports that producers have. So it's all quite detailed, and part of the onboarding is working with your team to set up those user roles to make it a very streamlined and make sure that everyone has the appropriate access to the information that they need to have for their specific role.
Great. And there's a question from David, Liam, that I believe is pointed at you guys as well, asking about your QR codes.
Yeah, great question. So any of the QR codes, let me just jump over here. Yeah, all of these QR codes can be scanned and will take you back to the specific plant scouting record, or to the corresponding, if you scan it from the production batch report here, it will take you back to the corresponding batch. So sometimes, during an audit, if the inspector wants to see you have the printed version and they want to take it back to the digital world really quick, you can access that information in here. The QR codes can also be used to quickly identify any of the batches that you have in the facility, whether those are plant batch or weighted processing batches.
Okay, and you're popular today, Liam. You have another question from Permita.
Perfect. Oh, I see it in here. So Parmina is asking, obviously CTS is a big part of the industry. How do we manage the reporting and how does that work? Great question. So all of our reporting is done in our reporting module in here. And we provide your team with the detailed cultivation and processing reports that your team needs to fill out the Health Canada CTS workbook. So part of what the onboarding goes through is essentially mapping out your internal processes and the subsequent substance types, so essentially the internal product classifications that your team is using to track your inventory. And we map that into Elevated Signals for you to have your own Health Canada CTS workbook. So from a cultivation perspective, you can download executive reports, detailed reports. Same with the processing, download specific inventory reports. Also downloading a lot of the work orders in here, and as well as the quality records. So from a work orders perspective, I just have one sort of queued up here. It will pull all of the work order information out from the system. And what you can do is just search, sort, and filter that information. Let's say I want to look at an extraction work order in here, for example. I have the types of work orders that I've done, when they were open, when they were closed, and then tracking any of our inputs in here. So in this example, we have our dried cannabis input, what the different outputs are. And all of the outputs are essentially the enumerated substance types that we've helped define for your organization. So whether you have, hash or large buds, small buds, shatter, whatever those product types are, you can enumerate all that information through the work orders. as well as tracking all of your processing loss. So a major field in your monthly Health Canada reporting, all of the processing loss can be summed up in here and put into the elevated signals workbook for you guys to export to Health Canada. So our philosophy is providing very detailed reports, not only for Health Canada CTS, but just for your own internal inventory reporting, just facility information as well. Perfect. A quick question, actually, Chris, one that's come that just came into me directly here. So how does the employee permissions access work for Isolocity? And are there different users allowed in the software?
Yeah, absolutely. We have various levels of users, and I'll just pull up our website here. We have 3 levels of users. One would be what we call our full user, and that has 3 levels of permissions based on their requirements and what they need to do and contribute to the QMS. We also have what we call a production user, which is more like a worker bee, where they come in and they just contribute, complete, and they can also own SOPs. And then we have our employee level user, and it's worth noting the employee level user is actually a free user, and you can have as many of them as you'd like. And what that looks like from an employee's perspective here is they still have the ability to come into Isolocity and review any sort of action items that are associated to them and complete any training tests or requirements that have been triggered for them. So here we can see this employee can come in, they can see external links, review any sort of resource materials, and answer any questions that will then get brought into their training profile. On top of that too, our employee level users also able to initiate quick add CAPA. And they can initiate these quality loops because you want to have everyone in your company involved in quality management. Quality management is just not the QAP and their assistants, it's everyone. It's a total quality package, and that's how the most successful companies operate, is having everyone involved in their quality management system. So the ability to allow your employees to quick add these reports and initiate and escalate up where required. They're also able to review the status of any corrective actions or any CAPAs that they generated and initiated, but they're not able to contribute. And that's sort of how we allow our users to have people initiate and then escalate up. And then finally, they're also able to view any documents that are published that they have permissions to view as well too. So this is the lowest level tier we have at Isolocity. We call that the employee level user, and that comes with full SOP review if they're associated to those SOPs, if they have the ability to initiate and track corrective action events that they are a part of, and they also have the ability to take training when assigned to them. So that's a little bit about that user tier. And then finally, I'll give you a quick look to the production guys, and then we'll get back to the questions. And this is what a production level user would look like here. Similar sort of look, but have a little bit more bells and whistles. They can complete inspections, so they could be a QA tech and sign off on batches. They can also be owners of corrective actions and associate to corrective actions and drive those corrective actions. And they're also able to contribute to equipment reports where required as well too. So that's a little bit about our user tiers and how they function.
And there was one more question from David that came in. Are there any issues integrating our previously created forms based on our SOPs that were created in Isolocity at the onset? I'm going to just take a stab and sort of say that this might apply to elevated signals. And how you can do that is in the actual form builder here. So I'm just going to pull that up right in here. So David, in the quick records template in here, some of the information that you might be already have outlined in your forms could be captured in the digital templates that we provide to your team here. If not, you can go into the form builder, and this is where you can create any of your unique forms that you have to the facility. So, if you want to have any information regarding, work orders or trimming work orders, moisture analysis results, any of these kind of forms that you would have, it would all be done through the form builder in here, opening this up and then adding the specific fields that are required by your SOPs into the actual forms that staff would be filling out on the shop floor. So again, part of your onboarding is going through the training and making sure that your team is of course comfortable with using this and that all of that key production information is captured. And then we've got one last question that came in through the buzzer beater here. Where did it go? I believe the question was from Ashley, clarifying if Elevated Signals tracks non-cannabis inventory, soil mixes, packing material. Great question, Ashley. Yes, we are on the tail end of working on our non-cannabis inventory module. So all of that information will be tracked in Elevated Signals. So information, about, soil mixes, packaging material, pots that you're going to use. All of that is just in the final stages of development, and we're going to be releasing it very shortly here. So excited to get that out to our existing users and just to, really help producers encompass the entire manufacturing supply chain at their facility. So that's going to bring us up to time. Wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to chat today, and a big thanks to again Chris and the whole team at Isolocity for putting on this webinar with us. And we had an absolute blast. So I'm going to put my contact information in the chat here. Please don't hesitate to reach out, to drop me a line or an email, or myself or Chris, and would love to chat more about your facility and what you guys have got going on in your production. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, William. And on top of that too, I will say thank you and thanks for taking time on your busy schedules. We will be circulating this video to everyone who signed up for the webinar. So if you missed it, you jumped in late or had to leave early, rest assured we'll be sending this video out to everyone who registered so they could re-review it and look at the demonstrations and the problems that we're solving with Elevated Signals and Isolocity. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Enjoy your afternoon and get some sunshine. Cheers.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye-bye.